Girl saves a crying wolf cub. What the mother wolf and her pack do next leaves everyone shocked. Subscribe to the channel to receive all our exciting stories. In the majestic heights of the Rocky Mountains, where the thin air mingles with the scent of centuries-old pines, the small town of Pine Ridge was waking up to the first rays of the sun. Skye Morgan, a 23-year-old with amber eyes and hair as black as night, watched the sunrise from her bedroom window while adjusting her climbing gear with the precision that only years of practice can provide. The walls of her room were decorated with medals and awards from climbing competitions, silent witnesses to a passion inherited through generations. Her father, Rick Morgan, was the head of the local rescue team, a man respected not only for his bravery, but for his deep knowledge of the mountains. Her mother, Ellen Sullivan, was the town's only doctor, known for combining modern medicine with traditional remedies she learned from her grandmother. That morning had a special flavor for Skye. In less than 24 hours, she would leave for the prestigious National Alpine Rescue School in Denver, following in her father's footsteps. But before that, she felt the need to say goodbye to her mountains in the only way she knew how, by climbing to Eagle's Perch, her favorite place in the whole world. "Skye, breakfast is ready," her mother's voice echoed from the kitchen, mingling with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and warm pancakes. Skye descended the creaky wooden stairs, each step a reminder of her childhood running up and down, always in a hurry to go out and explore. In the kitchen, she found her parents in one of their usual friendly arguments. Rick insisted that Skye should take the emergency radio on her last excursion, while Ellen argued that their daughter needed this moment of solitude to connect with the mountain. "Mom, Dad, I'm an adult now," Skye interrupted with a smile, pouring herself coffee in her favorite mug, the one with wolf drawings that her grandmother had given her on her last birthday. "I'll take the radio, but I also need this moment for myself." Breakfast passed with parental advice and memories. Skye half listened, her mind already in the heights, planning the route she would take. Through the kitchen window, she could see the clouds brushing the snow-capped peaks, as if the sky itself was caressing the earth. In town, everyone knew Skye. As she walked towards the trail that would lead her to her destination, neighbors greeted her with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. Mrs. Carmen, the old woman who sold medicinal herbs in the square, stopped her to hand her a small cloth bag. "For good luck, sweetie," she said with a smile that revealed years of wisdom. "The mountains have their own plans, and sometimes they test us when we least expect it." Skye tucked the bag into her backpack, grateful for the gesture. The entire town seemed to hold its breath, as if knowing that something extraordinary was about to happen. Local legends spoke of the mountains as living beings, ancient guardians that tested those who sought their true path. As she began her ascent along the familiar trail, Skye couldn't help but feel that each step brought her not only closer to the summit, but to a destiny that would change her life forever. The morning sun painted the rocks golden, and the wind whispered among the pines ancient stories of valor and sacrifice. What Skye didn't know was that the mountains had chosen this day to test her, and that before nightfall, she would face a challenge that would test not only her skills as a climber, but also her heart and spirit. The clouds began to dance around the peaks, as if preparing the stage for the extraordinary encounter that fate had prepared for her. The trail became steeper as Skye ascended, her hiking boots finding firm support on the moss-covered rocks. The air grew colder and thinner, but for her, it was like a revitalizing elixir. Each deep breath connected her more with the mountain, as if she were absorbing its strength and wisdom. As she walked, memories of her childhood flowed like a crystal-clear river in her mind. She remembered the long hikes with her father, learning to read the terrain, to predict the weather by the flight of eagles and the movement of clouds. Her mother always prepared a special first aid kit for them, mixing medicinal herbs with modern bandages and antiseptics. "The mountain is life, Skye," her father would tell her on those excursions, "but it can also be dangerous if you don't respect it. Never forget that we're here to help those who get lost in its beauty." A sudden caw brought her out of her thoughts. She looked up to see a majestic golden eagle soaring in circles above her. Skye smiled, remembering the local legend that said eagles were the eyes of the mountain, watching over those who dared to challenge its heights. After several hours of hiking, she reached a small clearing that marked the halfway point of her ascent. Here, the forest opened up, revealing a panoramic view of the valley. Skye stopped to drink water and eat something. She took out a small leather notebook from her backpack, a gift from her grandmother before leaving. On its blank pages, she began to write her thoughts and emotions, a tradition she maintained on every important climb. As she wrote, a movement at the edge of the clearing caught her attention. Among the bushes, a young deer was watching her curiously. Their eyes met for a moment, and Skye felt a strange connection, as if the animal wanted to convey a message. As quickly as it appeared, the deer vanished into the thickness of the forest, leaving Skye with a sense of wonder and expectation. She continued her ascent, the terrain becoming more challenging. Here the trail markings faded, and Skye relied on her instinct and experience to navigate between the rocks. Her mind wandered to the future, imagining the challenges she would face at the rescue school. Suddenly, a metallic glint among the rocks caught her attention. She approached cautiously and discovered an old rusty carabiner, probably left behind by some climber years ago. She picked it up, feeling its weight in her hand, a relic of past adventures. "What story do you hide?" she murmured, pocketing the carabiner. This small discovery awakened in her a mixture of excitement and respect for all those who had traversed these mountains before her. As she gained altitude, the landscape changed dramatically. Trees gave way to hardy shrubs and alpine flowers that dotted the rocky terrain with explosions of color. The wind intensified, bringing with it the scent of snow from nearby peaks. Skye stopped for a moment to adjust her equipment and check her location on the GPS. It was then that she heard a distant sound, almost imperceptible among the whistling wind. She strained her ear, intrigued. The sound repeated, this time clearer. It was a howl, but not like the ones she had heard before from the coyotes in the valley. This sound was deeper, wilder. A shiver ran down her spine. Wolves. It had been decades since wolves had been seen in these mountains. The town elders told stories about them, legends that spoke of wolves as guardian spirits of the mountain. Skye had always believed they were just children's tales, but now in the solitude of the mountain, those stories took on a new dimension. The sun began its descent towards the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Skye knew she had to hurry if she wanted to reach the viewpoint before nightfall. She quickened her pace, her heart beating with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. As she advanced, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Occasionally, she thought she saw shadows moving among the rocks, but when she looked directly, there was nothing there. The wind howled between the stones, creating sounds that her imagination transformed into growls and footsteps. Finally, after a last steep stretch, Skye emerged at Eagle's Perch. The view was spectacular. The valley stretched below her, the town of Pine Ridge barely visible as a set of dim lights in the distance. The last light of day bathed everything in a golden glow, creating long shadows that stretched like fingers across the landscape. Skye breathed deeply, letting the majesty of the moment overwhelm her. She took out her camera to capture the view, turning slowly to take a panoramic shot. It was then that she saw it. On a rocky outcrop not far away, a slender grey figure was watching her intently. A wolf, majestic and wild, its golden eyes shining with an almost human intelligence. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Skye and the wolf stared at each other, as if assessing each other. In that instant, Skye felt something change within her, as if the mountain itself was revealing an ancient secret to her. The silence was broken by a sharp, pitiful sound that seemed to come from somewhere below the viewpoint. The wolf turned its head towards the source of the sound, and then looked back at Skye as if making a decision. With one last penetrating glance, the animal disappeared among the rocks, leaving Skye with her heart racing and the certainty that her adventure was just beginning. Skye's heart was pounding as her eyes scanned the rugged terrain, searching for the source of the pitiful sound that had interrupted her encounter with the wolf. The sun was rapidly sinking into the horizon, tinting the sky with reddish and purple hues, turning shadows into elongated and mysterious shapes. Cautiously, Skye approached the edge of the viewpoint, making sure to maintain a firm footing on the rocks. The wind had died down, allowing the weak and high-pitched whimper to be heard more clearly. It was coming from a narrow ledge a few meters below. "Hello?" called Skye, though she knew she wouldn't get a human response. The sound intensified, confirming her suspicions. It wasn't a person, but an animal in distress. Without thinking twice, Skye began to prepare her rappelling equipment. Years of training with her father had made these movements almost instinctive. As she secured the rope and checked her harness, she couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. Here she was, about to embark on a rescue just before leaving for the school where she would officially learn how to do it. Dad would be proud, she murmured to herself, remembering all the times Rick had instilled in her the importance of always being prepared to help. With one last glance at the setting sun, Skye began her descent. Each movement was calculated, each step carefully chosen. The friction of the rope against the rock created a soft hiss that mingled with her heartbeats and the increasingly closer whimpers of the animal. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, her feet touched the narrow ledge. What she saw took her breath away. Curled up against the rock wall, trembling and with a paw visibly trapped between two stones, was a small grey wolf cub. The pup, upon seeing her, tried to back away, but the pain in its paw kept it immobile. Its eyes, an intense golden color, looked at her with a mixture of fear and desperation. "Easy, little one," whispered Skye, using the soft tone she had learned from her mother to calm injured animals. "I'm here to help you." Slowly she approached the pup, constantly talking in a low and reassuring voice. The animal growled weakly, but made no attempt to bite her when she extended her hand. Carefully, Skye examined the situation. The pup's paw was firmly trapped, but there didn't seem to be any obvious fractures. Taking a small flashlight from her backpack, she better illuminated the area to assess how to free the animal without causing more harm. As she worked, a movement above caught her attention. Looking up, her heart skipped a beat. 3 adult wolves were watching from the edge of the cliff. One of them, the largest, was the same one she had seen earlier at the viewpoint. Their eyes met again, and Skye felt a mixture of fear and awe. The wolves growled softly, clearly anxious for their cub, but unable to descend the steep rock wall. Skye understood that she was in a precarious situation, trapped on a narrow ledge with an injured animal and a pack of wolves watching her every move. Taking a deep breath to calm her nerves, Skye refocused on the pup. "We're going to get you out of here," she murmured, both to the animal and to herself. Gently, she began to move the stones that were trapping the wolf's paw. The pup whimpered in pain but remained surprisingly still, as if understanding that she was trying to help. Above, the adult wolves moved restlessly, occasionally dislodging loose stones that fell dangerously close to Skye. She pressed closer to the wall, aware that one misstep could be fatal. After several minutes of careful work, she finally managed to free the pup's paw. Gently, she examined the limb, relieved to find that, although it was swollen and hurt, there didn't seem to be any serious damage. The relief was short-lived. Now she faced a new dilemma: how to return the pup to its pack. The ledge was too narrow for the small wolf to climb up on its own, and she couldn't simply leave it there. Skye looked up, where the adult wolves were still watching. Then, at her climbing equipment, an idea began to form in her mind, risky but possible. With gentle movements so as not to scare the pup, Skye took out a light canvas from her backpack. Speaking constantly in a low and reassuring voice, she managed to wrap the small wolf, creating a sort of improvised harness. "Trust me, little one," she whispered, securing the pup to her own climbing rope. "I'll take you to your family." With one last glance at the adult wolves, who were now intently watching her every move, Skye began the ascent. Each step was a challenge, carrying not only her own weight, but also that of the pup. The animal, surprisingly, remained still throughout the process, as if understanding the delicacy of the situation. As they approached the edge, Skye could hear the increasingly closer growls of the adult wolves. Her heart was pounding, aware that she was about to come face to face with wild animals in their territory. Finally, with one last effort, Skye reached the edge of the cliff. Carefully, she deposited the canvas-wrapped pup on the flat surface. The adult wolves approached immediately, their eyes fixed on her as she untied the little one. The moment the pup was free seemed to freeze time. Skye slowly backed away, maintaining eye contact with the lead wolf. To her amazement, the large animal showed no aggression. Instead, it approached the pup, sniffed it carefully, and then, to Skye's surprise, turned its gaze back to her. In that instant, Skye felt a deep and inexplicable connection. The wolf's eyes seemed to communicate something beyond words, a mixture of gratitude and respect that defied logic. Slowly, the pack began to retreat, the pup limping slightly but visibly relieved to be with its own. The lead wolf was the last to leave, maintaining its gaze on Skye until the last moment before disappearing into the twilight shadows. Skye stood there, panting, her mind trying to process what had just happened. The sun had completely disappeared, leaving a starry sky as a silent witness to her extraordinary adventure. As she gathered her equipment, Skye couldn't help but feel that something fundamental had changed in her. This encounter, this improbable rescue, seemed to be more than a coincidence. It was as if the mountain, the wolves, and fate itself had aligned to show her something important. With legs trembling from exertion and emotion, Skye began the descent towards the town. She knew she had an incredible story to tell, but more than that, she felt she had discovered a new facet of herself, a deeper connection with nature and her vocation as a rescuer. As the town lights began to shine in the distance, Skye promised herself that she would never forget this night, and that she would carry with her the lesson of courage, compassion, and respect for nature that the wolves had taught her, wherever her path might lead her. Dawn found Skye sitting in her home's kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug of hot coffee, as she recounted the events of the previous night to her parents. Rick and Ellen listened with a mixture of amazement and concern, exchanging meaningful glances as their daughter described the wolf cub rescue. "Skye, what you did was incredibly dangerous," said Rick, his voice a mixture of pride and reproach. "But it was also very brave. You've shown you have the heart of a true rescuer." Ellen, for her part, was carefully examining the scratches and bruises on Skye's arms. "I'm proud of you, my girl," she said softly, "but promise me you'll be more careful in the future. The mountains are beautiful, but they can also be unforgiving." Skye nodded, aware that her parents were right. However, she couldn't deny the excitement that still ran through her veins as she remembered the lead wolf's eyes, that inexplicable connection she had felt. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of activity as Skye prepared for her departure. The entire town seemed to have heard about her adventure, and she couldn't take 2 steps without someone stopping her to congratulate her or warn her about the dangers of wolves. As she packed her suitcase, Skye found the small pouch that Mrs. Carman had given her. She opened it curiously and found inside a small stone carved in the shape of a wolf. An attached note read, "So you never forget the wisdom of the mountains." Skye smiled, touched by the gesture, and carefully tucked the charm into her pocket. That night in the town square, a small farewell party was organized. Paper lanterns hung between the trees, and the air was filled with the aroma of barbecue and hot apple cider. Skye found herself surrounded by friends and neighbors, all wishing her luck on her new adventure. Among the crowd, Skye noticed Jason, a young man from town who had always shown interest in her. He approached with a shy smile on his face. "Skye, I wanted to wish you good luck," said Jason, his eyes shining in the lantern light. "I know you'll do great things in the city." Skye felt a slight blush on her cheeks. Jason had always been kind to her, and for a moment she wondered if she was making the right decision by leaving. But the memory of the wolves, of the excitement of the rescue, reaffirmed her determination. "Thank you, Jason," she replied with a warm smile. "I promise to come back and tell you all about my adventures." As the night progressed, Skye found herself sitting on a bench in the square, watching her friends and family laugh and dance. She felt on the threshold of something big, exciting, and a little scary. Suddenly, a movement at the edge of the square caught her attention. There, barely visible in the shadows, was the lead wolf. Skye held her breath, wondering if she was imagining things. But no, the wolf was real, its golden eyes shining in the darkness, fixed on her. No one else seemed to have noticed the animal. For a moment, Skye considered alerting the others, but something stopped her. This was a message just for her, a final farewell from the mountains she had called home all her life. The wolf looked at her intently for a few more seconds, and then, as silently as it had appeared, vanished into the night. Skye felt a mixture of excitement and melancholy. It was as if the mountains themselves were giving her their blessing for this new stage of her life. The next morning, with the sun barely peeking over the peaks, Skye found herself at the small town bus station. Her family and friends had gathered to see her off. She hugged her parents tightly, promising to call as soon as she arrived in the city. "Remember, Skye," said her father, his voice heavy with emotion, The mountains will always be your home. Carry their strength with you." Her mother handed her a small package. "Herbal tea," she explained with a smile. "So you never forget the taste of home." As the bus pulled away along the winding mountain road, Skye looked out the window, watching her town grow smaller and smaller. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. It wasn't goodbye, she reminded herself, but the beginning of something new. In her pocket, her fingers caressed the small wolf figure that Mrs. Carman had given her. Somehow she felt she was carrying with her not only the good wishes of her people, but also the blessing of the mountains and their silent guardians. The bus turned a curve, and suddenly the town disappeared from view. Skye took a deep breath, facing the road ahead. The city awaited her with its own challenges and adventures. But in her heart, she knew she would always be a daughter of the mountains, and that the spirit of the wolf would guide her on her new path. As the bus advanced, Skye couldn't help but think about what awaited her. The National Alpine Rescue School was known for its rigorous training. She wondered what her classmates and instructors would be like. Would they understand the deep connection she felt with the mountains? As the landscape changed from steep mountains to gentle hills, and then to the outskirts of the big city, Skye felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness growing inside her. She was about to embark on the biggest adventure of her life, armed with the love of her family, the lessons of her mountains, and the indomitable spirit she had inherited from generations of mountain dwellers. With one last look at the distant peaks of her home, Skye promised herself that she would make her town proud. She would carry with her the wisdom of the mountains and the strength of the wolf wherever she went, facing each new challenge with the same courage she had shown in rescuing the wolf cub. The bus entered the city, and Skye felt that one chapter of her life was closing, while another, full of promises and possibilities, was opening before her. The bustle of Denver enveloped Skye as soon as she got off the bus. The contrast with the tranquility of Pine Ridge was overwhelming. The noise of traffic, the crowd of people rushing in all directions, the tall buildings that seemed to touch the sky. For a moment she felt small and lost, like a snowflake in the midst of an urban storm. Tightening the strap of her backpack, Skye headed towards the address she had been given. The National Alpine Rescue School was located on the outskirts of the city, in an area where buildings began to give way to more rugged terrain, like a bridge between the urban world and the mountains she loved so much. As she walked, Skye couldn't help but compare the sounds and smells of the city with those of her home. The aroma of pine and damp earth had been replaced by that of hot asphalt and car exhaust. The songs of birds were lost among the noise of horns and sirens. However, there was an energy in the air, a sense of infinite possibilities that excited her. Finally, after a subway ride and a short bus trip, Skye arrived at the gates of the school. The main building was an imposing structure of stone and glass, designed to reflect the mountains that could be seen in the distance. A large logo of an eagle holding a rescue rope adorned the entrance. With a deep breath, Skye crossed the gates. The interior was a hive of activity. Young people her age, some looking nervous, others brimming with confidence, moved from one side to another. Impeccably uniformed instructors gave directions and handed out schedules. "Welcome to the National Alpine Rescue School," greeted a middle-aged woman with a warm smile. "I'm Professor Ramirez." "You must be Skye Morgan." Skye nodded, surprised that they knew her by name. "Your father, Rick, was one of our best students," explained Professor Ramirez, as if reading her mind. "We're excited to have the next Morgan generation with us." As Professor Ramirez guided her through the facilities, Skye marveled at the state-of-the-art equipment, indoor climbing walls, and extreme condition simulators. It was as if all her childhood dreams were coming to life before her eyes. "And here's your dorm room," said the professor, stopping in front of a door. "You'll be sharing a room with another student. Classes start first thing tomorrow. Rest well, Skye, you'll need it." With one last encouraging smile, Professor Ramirez walked away, leaving Skye in front of the door of her new temporary home. With a nervous sigh, she turned the knob and entered. The room was simple but cozy, with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a window that offered a view of the mountains in the distance. On one of the beds, a red-haired, freckled young woman was unpacking her suitcase. "Hi," greeted the girl enthusiastically. "You must be my roommate. I'm Sophie." "Skye," she replied, shaking the hand Sophie offered. "Nice to meet you." As she unpacked, Sky and Sophie began to chat, discovering they had a lot in common. Sophie came from a small coastal town and, like Sky, had grown up surrounded by nature. "You know," said Sophie, as she hung a poster of snow-capped mountains on the wall, "I always dreamed of climbing big peaks, but in my town we only had the sea. When I discovered Alpine Rescue, I knew it was my destiny." Sky smiled, feeling she had found a friend. "I grew up in the mountains," she shared. "For me, this is like following a family tradition." As night fell, more and more students arrived, the hallway filled with excited voices and nervous laughter. Sky and Sophie decided to take a walk around the facilities, familiarizing themselves with their new environment. In the cafeteria, they met a diverse group of students. There was Carlos, a tall, athletic guy from Houston, Amelia, a shy-looking young woman but with eyes that sparkled with determination, and Javier, who couldn't stop talking about the latest helicopter rescue techniques. As they had dinner and shared their stories, Sky realized that despite coming from different parts of the country, they all shared the same passion for the mountains and the desire to help others. Back in their room, Sky sat on the windowsill, looking at the city lights and the dark silhouettes of the mountains on the horizon. She took out the wolf charm that Mrs. Carmen had given her and held it close to her heart. "What's that?" Sophie asked curiously. Sky hesitated for a moment, but then decided to share her story. She told Sophie about the wolf cub rescue, the connection she had felt with the pack, and how that experience had reaffirmed her decision to become a rescuer. Sophie listened with wide eyes, fascinated. "Wow, Sky," she said when she finished. "That's incredible. I think you're destined to do great things here." That night, as she prepared for bed, Sky felt a mix of emotions. She missed her home, the scent of pines, and the sound of wind among the mountains. But she also felt a growing excitement for what was to come. Before closing her eyes, she looked once more towards the window. For a moment she thought she saw the silhouette of a wolf in the distance, but she blinked and it disappeared. Real or imaginary, the memory comforted her. "Tomorrow," thought Sky as sleep overtook her, "my true adventure begins." And so, with a heart full of hope and a mind full of dreams, Sky fell asleep, ready to face the challenges that awaited her on her new path as an aspiring alpine rescuer. The shrill sound of an alarm broke the silence of dawn, startling Sky and her dormitory mates. Within seconds, the powerful voice of the head instructor, Captain Hank Summers, resonated through the loudspeakers. "Attention, trainees. You have exactly 5 minutes to report to the main courtyard, fully equipped for a high mountain rescue mission. The clock is ticking." Sky jumped out of bed, her heart pounding. Around her, the dormitory turned into organized chaos, students hurriedly dressing, searching for equipment and helping each other. "Come on, Sky," shouted Sophie, tossing her rescue backpack. "We can't be late on our first day." With a speed and precision that surprised even herself, Sky dressed and geared up. The years of preparation with her father proved their worth in this critical moment. Exactly 4 minutes and 45 seconds later, Sky, Sophie, and the rest of the trainees were lined up in the main courtyard. Captain Summers, a man of stern appearance and penetrating gaze, walked in front of them, evaluating them. "Welcome to your first test," he announced in a firm voice. "In Alpine Rescue, every second counts. The difference between life and death can be a matter of minutes. Today, you'll learn that lesson firsthand." With a gesture, Captain Summers pointed towards the rescue vehicles parked nearby. "Divide into teams of 4. Your mission: reach the base of Mount Evans in 30 minutes, locate an injured climber, and provide necessary first aid. The team that completes the mission with the greatest efficiency and teamwork will win. Those who fail, well, let's just say you'll have a very interesting week cleaning equipment." Sky found herself on a team with Sophie, Carlos, and Amelia. As they rushed towards one of the vehicles, Sky felt a mixture of adrenaline and nervousness. This was her chance to prove her worth, to put into practice everything she had learned. The trip to Mount Evans was a test in itself. Carlos, who turned out to be an excellent driver, maneuvered the vehicle through winding roads, while Amelia studied the map, and Sky and Sophie prepared the medical equipment. Upon reaching the base of the mountain, they faced their next challenge: locating the injured climber in rugged terrain with limited visibility due to the morning fog. "We should split up," suggested Sky, remembering her father's lessons. "But let's maintain visual contact and use whistles if we find anything." The team nodded, impressed by Sky's calm and natural leadership. They dispersed, moving cautiously over the rocky terrain. It was Amelia who finally found the injured person, a training dummy strategically placed in a hard-to-reach crevice. Her whistle alerted the rest of the team. Sky arrived first, quickly assessing the situation. "He has a leg fracture and possible head trauma," she diagnosed. "Carlos, we need the rescue stretcher." "Sophie, prepare the first aid kit. Amelia, help me stabilize him." Working in perfect synchronization, the team managed to secure the injured person, provide necessary first aid, and begin the descent to the evacuation point. Sky led the way, her mountain instinct guiding them along the safest and most efficient route. When they reached the meeting point, they were surprised to see they were the first. Captain Summers watched them with an indecipherable expression. "Impressive team," he finally said, allowing himself a small smile. "Especially you, Morgan. I see you've inherited more than just your father's name." Sky felt a surge of pride, but remained humble. "It was a team effort, sir," she responded. As the other teams arrived, Sky and her companions observed, learning from the successes and mistakes of others. Some teams had gotten lost, others had made errors in first aid, and one had even forgotten crucial equipment in the vehicle. Back at the school during the feedback session, Captain Summers was relentless in his criticisms, but also fair in his praise. "Remember," he concluded, "in a real situation there's no room for mistakes. Every decision you make can mean the difference between life and death. Today was just a test, but tomorrow it could be real." That night, in the cafeteria, the atmosphere was a mixture of excitement and exhaustion. Sky and her team were the center of attention, receiving congratulations from their classmates. "Sky, you were incredible out there," exclaimed Javier, the helicopter enthusiast. "Where did you learn to move like that in the mountains?" Sky smiled, thinking of her home, her father's lessons, and the connection she felt with nature. "Let's just say I had good teachers," she replied, discreetly touching the wolf charm in her pocket. As they ate dinner, Sky noticed that not everyone shared the enthusiasm. At a nearby table, a group of students led by a young man named Derek were looking at her with suspicion. "Don't worry about them," Sophie whispered, noticing the direction of Sky's gaze. "Derek comes from an influential family and thought he'd be the star of the course. He doesn't like competition." Sky nodded but couldn't help feeling a twinge of concern. She knew that in the world of rescue, teamwork and mutual trust were fundamental. Any rivalry or resentment could be dangerous. That night, as she prepared for bed, Sky reflected on the day. It had been intense, exciting and exhausting, but it had also confirmed that she was exactly where she needed to be. Before closing her eyes, she looked once more towards the window, towards the distant mountains. For a moment she thought she saw a golden flash among the trees, like the reflection of a wolf's eyes. She smiled, feeling connected to her home, despite the distance. "Thank you," she whispered to the air, not knowing exactly who she was saying it to. Her parents, the mountains, the wolves, or perhaps all of them. With the satisfaction of a job well done and excitement for the challenges to come, Sky fell asleep, ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring in her journey to become an alpine rescuer. The following weeks at the National Alpine Rescue School were a roller coaster of emotions and challenges for Sky. Each day brought new lessons, from advanced climbing techniques to emergency medical procedures in extreme conditions. Sky immersed herself in learning with a passion that impressed both her instructors and her peers. One afternoon, after an intense training session in the avalanche simulator, Captain Summers called Sky to his office. The young woman's heart was pounding as she entered the austere room, decorated with photos of famous rescues and medals of honor. "Sit down, Morgan," said the captain, his face inscrutable. "There's something we need to talk about." Sky sat down, trying to stay calm. Had she done something wrong? Was she in trouble? Captain Summers pulled a folder from his desk and opened it. "I've been reviewing your file and your father's," he began. "Rick Morgan. He was one of the best rescuers who's ever passed through this school." Sky felt a wave of pride, but the captain's expression kept her on edge. "However," Summers continued, "there's something in his record that concerns me. An incident that occurred 15 years ago on Eagle Peak. Did your father ever talk to you about that?" Sky frowned, confused. "No, sir. He never mentioned anything about a specific incident." The captain looked at her intently, as if evaluating whether to say more. Finally, he let out a sigh. There was a rescue mission. Something went wrong. A climber died and your father, well, he left active service shortly after. The revelation hit Skye like an avalanche. How was it possible that she knew nothing about this? Her father had always been her hero, the perfect rescuer in her eyes. I'm not telling you this to discourage you, Morgan, the captain continued. But I need to know if you're prepared to face similar situations. Alpine rescue doesn't always have happy endings. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, things don't go as we hope. Skye nodded slowly, processing the information. I understand, sir, and I'm prepared to face any challenge. Captain Summers looked at her with a mixture of approval and concern. Good, because I have a special task for you and your team. Tomorrow you'll participate in a night rescue exercise on Eagle Peak. Skye felt a chill run down her spine. The same place where her father had faced that mysterious tragedy. That night Skye couldn't sleep. Her mind was spinning, full of unanswered questions. Why had her father never told her about that incident? What had really happened on Eagle Peak? Unable to stay still, Skye decided to go for a walk around the school grounds. The night was clear, the full moon bathing the landscape in a silver light that reminded her of nights in her hometown. As she walked, lost in her thoughts, she almost bumped into someone. It was Derek, the student who had been looking at her with suspicion since the first day. Well, said Derek with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. If it isn't the star of the course. What are you doing out of bed, Morgan? Practicing to be the captain's favorite. Skye ignored the provocation. I'm just getting some fresh air, Derek. Excuse me. But Derek didn't move. You know, I've been investigating your family, about your father. Interesting story his, don't you think? Skye tensed. I don't know what you're talking about. Derek let out a dry laugh. Oh, come on. The great Rick Morgan, the mountain hero, until something went wrong and he abandoned everything. I wonder if the apple will fall far from the tree. Skye felt anger growing inside her, but she held back. My father is a great man and an excellent rescuer, and I'm here on my own merits. We'll see about that, Derek replied with disdain. Especially tomorrow on Eagle Peak. I hope you're prepared to face the ghosts of the past, Morgan. With those words, Derek walked away, leaving Skye with a knot in her stomach. How did Derek know about tomorrow's mission? And what else did he know about her father's past? Skye returned to her room, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. As she lay down, she looked towards the window, seeking comfort in the view of the distant mountains. Suddenly, a movement caught her attention. There, at the edge of the forest surrounding the school, she thought she saw the silhouette of a wolf. The animal looked at her intently for a moment, its eyes shining with an almost supernatural intelligence, before disappearing among the trees. Skye blinked, wondering if she had imagined it, but the vision, real or not, filled her with a strange calm. She remembered the wolf cub rescue, the connection she had felt with the pack. Perhaps it was a sign, a reminder of her inner strength and her connection to nature. With renewed determination, Skye promised herself that she would face the challenges of the next day with courage. She would discover the truth about her father's past and prove both to Derek and to herself that she was worthy of the Morgan legacy. As sleep finally overtook her, Skye clutched the wolf charm she carried with her, feeling that somehow the mountains and their silent guardians were watching over her, preparing her for the trials that were to come. The morning of the night rescue exercise dawned grey and threatening. Heavy clouds hung over Eagle Peak as if the mountain itself wanted to test the aspiring rescuers. Skye woke up before the alarm sounded, her mind still agitated by the revelations of the previous night. In the cafeteria, the atmosphere was tense. Students spoke in whispers, casting nervous glances towards the windows that showed the overcast sky. Skye sat with her team, Sophie, Carlos, and Amelia. Are you guys ready for this? Asked Carlos, his usual confidence tinged with a slight tremor in his voice. Amelia nodded, her eyes shining with determination. We've trained for this. We can do it. Sophie noticed Skye's worried expression. Are you okay? You seem distant. Skye was about to respond when Captain Summers' powerful voice resonated in the cafeteria. Attention, trainees. Today's exercise is not a game. Eagle Peak is treacherous on the best of days, and with this weather it will be even more dangerous. This will test everything you've learned so far." The captain paused, his gaze sweeping over the tense faces of the students. "You will divide into your assigned teams. Each team will have a specific mission. Some will search for lost victims, others will perform crevasse rescues. The key is teamwork and communication." Sky felt the captain's gaze fixed on her for a moment before he continued. "And remember, although this is an exercise, the dangers are real. If at any time you feel you're in true danger, use the emergency signal. There's no shame in asking for help. Better a live rescuer than a dead hero." With those somber words, the teams headed to the vehicles that would take them to the base of Eagle Peak. During the trip, Sky remained silent, her mind divided between the challenge ahead and the unanswered questions about her father. Upon reaching the base of the mountain, the fog was so dense they could barely see a few meters ahead. Captain Summers gave them the final instructions and handed out the communication equipment. "Team Morgan," he said, addressing Sky and her companions, "your mission is to locate and rescue a climber trapped on the north face. You have 4 hours. Good luck." Sky led her team towards the base of the north wall. As they began the ascent, the fog seemed to thicken, as if the mountain wanted to hide its secrets. "Stay close," Sky warned. "It's easy to get lost in these conditions." They had been climbing for almost 2 hours when they heard a distant cry. Sky felt her heart racing. Was it part of the exercise, or was someone really in trouble? "Over there," Amelia pointed, indicating a rocky outcrop barely visible in the fog. The team headed towards the source of the sound, moving cautiously over the treacherous terrain. Upon reaching the outcrop, they found a training dummy, but something wasn't right. The position was too precarious, almost as if someone had deliberately placed it there to make the rescue more dangerous. "I don't like this," Carlos muttered. "It looks like a trap." Sky was about to respond when an ominous cracking sound resonated beneath their feet. Before they could react, part of the outcrop crumbled. Sky acted on instinct, pushing Amelia back, while she herself lost her balance. For a terrible moment, Sky felt herself falling into the void, but her training and reflexes saved the situation. She managed to grab onto a crack in the rock, left hanging over the abyss. "Sky!" Sophie screamed, her voice full of panic. "I'm okay," Sky replied, though her heart was pounding. "I need you to throw me a rope." As her teammates worked frantically to secure a line, Sky couldn't help but think of her father. Had he faced a similar situation in this very place? Was this how he lost someone? With a joint effort, they managed to hoist Sky back to the relative safety of what remained of the outcrop. Panting, the team regrouped. "We have to report this," Carlos said, reaching for his radio. But only static responded to his call. "Communications are cut off," he announced worriedly. Sky looked around. The fog seemed even thicker. She made a decision. "Amelia, Carlos, you descend and seek help. Sophie and I will secure the climber and begin the descent slowly." "But Sky, it's dangerous to separate," Sophie protested. "It's more dangerous for all of us to stay here," Sky responded firmly. "Trust me." As Carlos and Amelia began their descent, Sky and Sophie worked to secure the dummy. But as they did so, Sky noticed something strange. There were marks on the rock that didn't seem natural, as if someone had been there recently. "Sophie," Sky whispered, "I think someone sabotaged this part of the exercise." Before Sophie could respond, a noise of falling rocks alerted them. Through the fog, Sky saw a figure moving quickly, moving away from them. "Hey!" Sky shouted, but the figure disappeared into the mist. At that moment, as if the mountain itself was responding to her shout, a strong wind partially cleared the fog. And there, on a nearby ledge, Sky saw something that froze her blood. A grey wolf, majestic and huge, was watching her intently. For an instant, Sky forgot where she was, lost in those golden eyes that seemed to look directly into her soul. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, the wolf vanished into the fog that was closing in again. "Sky, are you okay?" Sophie's worried voice brought her back to reality. Sky blinked, wondering if she had imagined the wolf. But something inside told her that no, that vision was real and meant something important. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice charged with a new determination. "Come on, we have to finish this rescue and find out what's really going on in this mountain." As they began the difficult descent with the climber secured, Skye couldn't shake the feeling that this exercise had turned into something much bigger. Between the mystery of her father's past, the apparent sabotage, and the inexplicable appearance of the wolf, Skye felt that Eagle Peak held secrets she was destined to discover. And as the fog closed around them, Skye promised herself that, no matter what happened, she would get to the bottom of this mystery. For her father, for herself, and for the truth that awaited in the heights of Eagle Peak. The descent from Eagle Peak was a test of endurance and skill for Skye and Sophie. The fog, dense and treacherous, seemed to play with their senses, hiding dangers and creating illusions. The weight of the rescued climber made each step more challenging. "Skye," Sophie panted as they secured a line, "what do you think is really going on? First the sabotage, then that mysterious figure." Skye gritted her teeth, focusing on the next move. "I don't know, Sophie, but I have a feeling this goes beyond a simple training exercise." As they descended, Skye couldn't get the image of the wolf out of her mind. Was it a sign? Or were stress and altitude playing tricks on her? Suddenly, a sound of rocks coming loose alerted them. Skye looked up just in time to see a dark figure moving quickly above them. "Watch out!" she shouted, pulling Sophie aside just as an avalanche of small stones passed, barely missing them. "What the hell?" exclaimed Sophie, eyes wide. "That wasn't an accident." Skye nodded, her mind racing. "Someone is following us, and not with good intentions." They continued their descent, now more alert than ever. The fog began to dissipate slightly, allowing them to see a bit further. It was then that Skye noticed something strange in a nearby rock formation. "Sophie, look," she whispered, pointing to a barely visible crevice. "Do you see that mark on the rock? It looks artificial." They approached cautiously. Upon closer examination, they discovered that the mark was actually the entrance to a small cave, skillfully camouflaged. "Should we investigate?" asked Sophie, doubt evident in her voice. Skye hesitated for a moment, but something inside pushed her to explore. Yes, but carefully. It could be important. They secured the rescued climber, and with flashlights in hand entered the cave. The interior was surprisingly spacious, and they soon realized it wasn't a natural formation. There were clear signs that someone had been using this place. "Skye, look at this," called Sophie, illuminating a wall of the cave. What they saw left them breathless. The wall was covered with maps, photographs, and notes. In the center, a large photo showed a group of rescuers. Skye immediately recognized her father, younger, smiling alongside his companions. It's my father's mission," Skye murmured, approaching to examine the documents. "The mission that went wrong 15 years ago." As they scrutinized the information, a story began to take shape. The mission hadn't been a simple rescue as Skye had thought. It was part of a larger operation to stop a group of smugglers who were using mountain routes for trafficking. "Skye, this is big," said Sophie, her voice trembling slightly. "Your father and his team discovered something, but it seems someone betrayed them." Skye felt her world wobble. Everything she thought she knew about her father, about that mission, was being questioned. Suddenly, a noise at the entrance of the cave startled them. They turned to see a figure blocking the exit. "Well, well," said a familiar voice. "Looks like the puppies have found the den." Skye narrowed her eyes, recognizing the voice. "Derek? What are you doing here?" Derek entered the cave, his face a mask of disdain and something else, fear. "You shouldn't be here. Some truths are better left buried." "You knew about this?" asked Skye, anger growing inside her. "Was it you who sabotaged the exercise?" Derek let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, Skye, always so naive. This goes beyond a simple training exercise. Your father stuck his nose where he shouldn't have, and now you're doing the same." Before Skye could respond, a distant howl echoed through the mountain. Derek visibly paled. "Impossible," he muttered. "They can't be here." Skye felt a chill run down her spine. That howl. It was the same one she had heard the night she rescued the wolf cub. Suddenly, a new figure appeared at the entrance of the cave. Skye held her breath as she recognized Captain Summers. "Enough, Derek," said the captain, his voice loaded with authority. "It's over." Derek looked frantically from Skye to Captain Summers like a cornered animal. "You don't understand. If I talk, I'm dead." Captain Summers took a step forward. "Nobody is going to die today. It's time for the truth to come to light." Sky, feeling they were on the brink of a crucial revelation, stepped forward. "Captain, what's really going on? What does my father have to do with all this?" Captain Summers looked at her with a mixture of pride and regret. "Your father, Sky, was more than a rescuer. He was part of a special unit that combated smuggling in the mountains. The mission 15 years ago, they discovered something big, something that involved powerful people." Sky felt her heart racing. "And what happened?" "There was an ambush," the captain continued. "Your father managed to save most of his team, but we lost a man. After that, to protect his family, your father decided to retire from active service." Derek, who had been listening with growing agitation, finally exploded. "My father died on that mission, and it was all covered up." Sky felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. Everything was starting to make sense. Derek's attitude towards her, the mystery surrounding her father. Before anyone could say anything more, a new howl, closer this time, broke the tense silence. And then, as if summoned by the sound, a huge grey wolf appeared at the entrance of the cave. Everyone froze. The wolf, majestic and serene, looked directly at Sky. At that moment she knew, with a certainty she couldn't explain, that this was the same wolf she had seen in her town, the leader of the pack. The wolf took a step towards Sky, ignoring the others, and in its eyes, Sky saw a clear message. It was time for all truths to come to light, no matter how painful they might be. With her heart pounding, Sky realized she was on the threshold of discovering not only the truth about her father, but also about herself and her connection with the mountains and their silent guardians. Eagle Peak, shrouded in fog and mystery, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the secrets it had guarded for so long to be revealed. Time seemed to stand still in the cave on Eagle Peak. The grey wolf, imposing and majestic, kept its gaze fixed on Sky, as if waiting for her to take the initiative. Sky, for her part, felt a strange mixture of fear and confidence. It's the same wolf," Sophie murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Captain Summers, with years of experience in the mountains, seemed equally amazed. "In all my years, I've never seen anything like this," he said, his voice filled with awe. Derek, on the other hand, backed up until he hit the cave wall, his face pale with fear. "This is impossible," he muttered. Sky, however, took a step forward. Something inside her told her that this was a crucial moment, a test that went beyond any rescue exercise. "It's okay," she said softly, extending her hand towards the wolf. "We're here to listen to the truth, the whole truth." To everyone's amazement, the wolf approached Sky and gently brushed her hand with its muzzle. In that instant, Sky felt as if an electric current ran through her body. Images and sensations flooded her mind. She saw her father younger in these same mountains. She saw the wolf pack, silent guardians of Eagle Peak's secrets. And she saw something else, something that made her heart race. "The wolves," said Sky, her voice trembling slightly, "have been protecting these mountains for generations, not just from natural dangers, but also from those who seek to exploit them." Captain Summers nodded slowly. "Your father discovered that 15 years ago. The smugglers weren't just using the mountain routes, they were destroying the habitat, poaching illegally. Your father and his team allied with local rangers to stop them. But someone betrayed them," Sky continued, the pieces of the puzzle fitting in her mind. "Someone within the team was working with the smugglers." Derek, who had been listening with growing agitation, finally spoke. "My father, he wasn't a traitor. He discovered who the real infiltrator was, but before he could reveal it, he was murdered," Captain Summers completed, his voice heavy with regret. "And the case was closed, classified as a mountain accident." Sky felt her world wobble. "So, all this time, my father retired not out of guilt or failure, but to protect us. To continue investigating from the shadows." The wolf, which had remained by Sky's side all this time, emitted a soft growl as if confirming her words. "But why now?" asked Sophie. "Why are all these secrets coming to light just when Sky arrived at the school?" Captain Summers looked at Sky with a mixture of pride and concern. Because Sky has a gift that her father also had. A special connection with these mountains and their guardians. Sky remembered all the times she had felt a presence in the forest, the times she had had hunches that turned out to be true. It wasn't just instinct or good luck. It was something deeper, more ancient. "The wolves chose you, Sky," said the captain, "just as they chose your father before you. You're a bridge between two worlds, capable of understanding the secrets of the mountains and protecting them." Derek, who had been listening to all this with growing amazement, finally slumped against the cave wall. "All this time, I blamed your father. You, when in reality..." Sky approached Derek, feeling years of resentment and misunderstandings dissipating. "It's not too late to do the right thing, Derek. Your father was a hero just like mine. We can honor their memory by finishing what they started." The wolf, as if understanding the importance of the moment, moved to the center of the cave. With its muzzle, it pushed a loose rock, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was an old, worn journal. Sky took it with trembling hands. As she opened it, she recognized her father's handwriting. "It's my father's journal," she said, her voice charged with emotion. "Here's everything: names, dates, locations, everything we need to unmask the real culprits." Captain Summers nodded with determination. "This changes everything. With this information, we can finally bring justice and protect these mountains as they should be." Sky looked around, at Sophie, her loyal friend, at Derek, who now understood the truth, at Captain Summers, guardian of secrets for so many years, and at the wolf, a living symbol of the connection between the natural world and the human world. "It won't be easy," said Sky, her voice full of determination. "Those responsible are powerful and will do whatever it takes to keep their secrets hidden. But together, with the wisdom of the mountains and the spirit of the wolves on our side, we can do it." The wolf let out a long, deep howl that resonated in the cave and beyond, on the slopes of Eagle Peak. It was a call to action, a promise that the truth would come to light and that the mountains and their inhabitants, both human and animal, would be protected. Sky felt a new strength surge within her. She was no longer just an aspiring rescuer. She was the heir to an ancient legacy, a guardian of millennial secrets, and she was ready to face any challenge that stood in her way. As the group prepared to leave the cave and face what was to come, Sky exchanged one last look with the wolf. In its golden eyes, she saw a reflection of her own destiny, a difficult but noble path, full of dangers, but also of unimaginable wonders. With her father's journal in one hand, and the other resting on the wolf's silver fur, Sky took the first step towards her new destiny, ready to unravel the mysteries of Eagle Peak and protect the legacy that had been entrusted to her. The days following the discovery in the cave on Eagle Peak were a whirlwind of activity. Sky, along with Captain Summers, Sophie, and a now cooperative Derek, worked tirelessly to decipher the information in Rick Morgan's journal. The National Alpine Rescue School became the operations center for an investigation that went far beyond simple training exercises. Captain Summers had contacted trusted authorities, and little by little, a support network formed around them. However, as they advanced in their investigation, Sky couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadows seemed darker, the whispers of the wind more threatening. One night, as Sky was reviewing some documents in her room, Sophie burst in hurriedly. "Sky, you have to see this," she said, turning on the TV. On the news, a reporter was speaking in front of an image of Eagle Peak. Anonymous sources have revealed that a large-scale smuggling operation is being investigated in the mountain region. It is rumored that high-ranking officials could be involved. Sky and Sophie exchanged concerned looks. Their investigation was no longer a secret. "This changes everything," Sky murmured. "Those responsible will know we're after them." As if the universe wanted to underscore her words, thunder rumbled in the distance. A storm was approaching, both literally and figuratively. The next day, Captain Summers called an urgent meeting. His face was tense when he addressed the group. "We've identified the leaders of the smuggling operation," he announced. "But we've also discovered that they're planning one last big move before disappearing. Tonight, on Eagle Peak." Sky felt her heart racing. "What can we do?" "We're going to intercept them," the captain replied. "But it will be dangerous. The approaching storm will make conditions extreme." Derek, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. "It's our chance to bring justice for our fathers." Sky nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "We're ready." As they prepared for the mission, Sky couldn't help but think of the grey wolf. Since that night in the cave, she hadn't seen it again. but she felt its presence like a protective shadow. As the sun set, the group began their ascent of Eagle Peak. The storm raged around them, the wind howling among the rocks as if the mountain itself was warning of danger. Skye led the way, her instinct and connection with the mountain guiding them through the darkness and pouring rain. Each step was a challenge. Each meter gained a small victory. Halfway up, they heard the sound of a helicopter approaching. "It must be them!" Sophie shouted over the roar of the storm. The group hurried, fighting against the elements. Skye felt that every fiber of her being was in tune with the mountain, as if Eagle Peak itself was helping them in their mission. Finally, they reached a plateau near the summit. There, through the curtain of rain, they saw the helicopter landing and a group of figures moving quickly, carrying boxes. "Now!" ordered Captain Summers. The group lunged forward, taking the smugglers by surprise. Skye found herself face to face with a man she recognized from the photos in her father's journal, the real traitor, the one who had caused Derek's father's death. "It's over," said Skye, her voice firm despite the storm raging around them. The man looked at her with a mixture of surprise and disdain. "You're just like your father, girl. Always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." Before Skye could react, the man pulled out a gun, but at that precise moment, a piercing howl cut through the air. From the darkness emerged a grey and powerful form, the wolf. The animal lunged at the man, knocking him down. The gun fell to the ground, lost among the rocks. The appearance of the wolf sowed chaos among the smugglers. Taking advantage of the confusion, Skye and her team, along with the authorities Captain Summers had alerted, managed to subdue and arrest the criminals. As the authorities took away the detainees, the storm began to subside. Skye approached the wolf, which remained serene amidst the chaos. "Thank you," she whispered, gently caressing its silver fur. The wolf looked at her one last time, its golden eyes shining with ancient wisdom, before disappearing into the night, its howl echoing in the mountains like a victory song. Skye turned to her companions. Sophie hugged her tightly, tears of relief in her eyes. Derek approached, extending his hand. "We did it," he said, his voice charged with emotion. "Our fathers would be proud." Skye took his hand, feeling years of misunderstandings and resentment dissipating like fog under the morning sun. Captain Summers approached, a proud smile on his tired face. "You've proven to be a true guardian of the mountains, Skye. Your father would be proud." As the sun began to peek over the horizon, bathing Eagle Peak in a golden light, Skye felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. She had honored her father's legacy, had discovered her own path, and in the process had forged unbreakable bonds with her friends and with the mountain itself. Eagle Peak, majestic and eternal, rose before them, no longer as a place of dark secrets, but as a symbol of truth, justice, and the eternal connection between man and nature. Skye knew this wasn't the end of her journey, but just the beginning. With the wisdom of the mountains, the spirit of the wolves, and the support of her loved ones, she was ready to face any challenge the future might bring.